we cannot feel you near. We doubt your goodness, we doubt your love, as if every promise from your word is not enough. All the while you hear each desperate plea and long that we'd have faith to believe. Because what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? What if trials of this life are your mercies in disguise? When friends betray us, when darkness seems to win, we know that pain reminds this heart that this is not our home. This is not our home. What if our greatest disappointments or the aching of this life is the revealing of a greater thirst this world can't satisfy? What if trials of this life, the rain, the storms, the hardest nights, are your mercies in disguise? And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. Who is it that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up your loins like a man. I will question you, and you shall declare to me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? Or what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy. A lectionary preacher, I have just provided you the words of the Hebrew text assigned for this, the 21st Sunday after Pentecost, Job chapter 38, verses 1 through 7. And during your personal meditation, I humbly invite you to read the epistle assigned for this day, Hebrews chapter 5, verses 1 through 10. Our Hebrew text from the book of Job, the epistle text from Paul's letter to the Hebrew church, and our gospel lesson according to Mark, along with the psalm that we used for our call to worship this morning, they all undergird and provide the foundation for today's proclamation, the counterintuitiveness of being great. Now, if you will, allow me time to offer you the backdrop that provides the context for the words from the Job passage. Job, you may recall, is a righteous man before God. At a council meeting in which God and the Satan are present, the Satan argues that Job's righteousness is dependent on his material possessions, his health, and his wealth. Challenging God, the Satan asks to prove his hypothesis and to test Job's integrity. God, ultimately knowing Job, agrees. With the agreement in place, the Satan sets out to destroy Job. Job loses his children, his cattle, his flocks, his possessions. His wife, perhaps frightened by the loss, advises Job to curse God and to die. Job's friends, rather than displaying empathy, hound him with questions, doubting his integrity, and that he must have sinned. For certainly a person who is righteous would not experience such calamities. His friends hound him relentlessly, so much so that as we arrive to our appointed reading for this morning, Job has confronted God with his why. Why, God, am I suffering? In the vernacular of today and with a desire to seek blame, Job is asking, why are you letting this happen to me? Why? Well, how would it be for us to consider Job's questions as really being questions that seek an identity of God's nature? Could Job be asking God to identify God's self? Is it God's nature to care, to be concerned for Job? God, in turn, offers description of God's nature, as God answers Job with a series of questions. And God's questions take Job and you and me back to creation, not in a punitive way or as a power play, but as a means of revealing the finiteness of our imagination in relation to God's wonder, God's splendor, God's majesty, God's wisdom in the midst of earth's complexities. That suffering is real and shall be experienced by all if, as my mother says, you just keep living. Suffering is. And God's greatness in his nearness also is a fact. God answers Job's questions with questions in order to remind us of the vastness of God's creative love and presence. A love that he began at creation, expressed in the garden, promised after the flood, journey alongside during and through the Red Sea. Oh, a love all the way to the cross of Calvary and the resurrection. For this is why the hymnist Carl Bomberg could pen his famous lyrics at a time when he moved through storms of oppression and suffering. Oh, Lord, my God, how great thou art, when I in awesome wonder consider all the world thy hands have made. I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. The hymnist, by faith, understood God's greatness as God's intimacy with our suffering. Intimacy with our suffering. For he continues, for when I think that God, his Son not sparing, sent him to die, I scarce can take it in. That on the cross, our burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away our sin. Greatness. Well, what is greatness? What is God's greatness? I offer to you that God in the crucified and resurrected Christ provides us the image of greatness. The Apostle Paul, whom we as students of the Bible know as once Saul struggled with the nature of greatness. Paul to the Hebrew church and post-resurrected community says it this way. In the days of his flesh, Jesus offered prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears to the one who was able to save him from death. And he was heard because of his reverent submission. Although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered. And having been made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation for all. You see, it is this Jesus, the Son of God, who when he lived among his disciples, extended the didactic of what is the counterintuitiveness of being great, as he offered a contrast to the religious elite. The religious elite who lauded their positions over people, who exerted draconian laws and interpretations of the Torah, who sought to deny Gentiles the right to be in relationship with God. In the Gospel of Mark, Jesus presents a lesson to his disciples upon their request for position and power, to sit on the right and on the left in the kingdom. Jesus answers their question. with a question. You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? Is humility a vocation that we are willing to embody? Is redemptive suffering a vocation we are willing to endure? The complexities of life have the capacity to lead us down many different paths. But are we able to stay focused, even in the face of disappointment, suffering, and temptations? To sit at the right hand and the left hand of Jesus in the kingdom. In our quest for position, relevance, greatness, how is greatness truly embodied? The counterintuitiveness of being great. Rudyard Kipling ponders this thought in his poem, If. Excerpts of his poem remind us, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes loving nor loving friends can hurt you, if all count with you, but none too much. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything in it. And which more, you will be a man, a woman, my son, my daughter. Last night, I had the opportunity to attend a conversation and book signing with Congressman Schiff. His new book is titled Midnight in Washington, How We Almost Lost Democracy and Still Could. I arrived early. We were given our books as we entered, so while waiting for the start of the conversation, I began to read. In the prologue titled, Why Should I?, Congressman Schiff walks us through his thought process as to why it was incumbent upon him to pursue not only impeachment of the former president, but also the vote of removal, knowing full well that the former would be a challenge and the latter would be virtually impossible. Position, power, influence. Why? He writes, for the past 3 years, Republicans have confided to me and to many of my Democratic colleagues their serious misgivings about the president. Some would go on Fox News and bash me only to urge me privately to keep on with the investigation. And it became clear that many Republicans felt someone needed to do it. Someone needed to put a stop to it all, even if they couldn't or wouldn't. And the question wasn't so much why should he be removed or why should I be the one, rather the question wasn't so much why should he be removed as why should I be the one to remove him? Why should I risk my seat, my position of power and influence, my career and future? Why should I? Why should I? He then closes his prologue with these words. Midnight is the darkest moment of the day everywhere in the world. But it is also the most hopeful because everything that comes after holds the promise of light. America has a genius for reinvention, and we must use it. For the same forces of bigotry that divided and nearly defeated the country in the Civil War, yes, without a doubt. But from some new to the American landscape as well, from a dangerous experimentation with a uniquely American brand of authoritarianism. We must all play a part. We must all confront the question, why should I? To be great. Oh, our greatness is not an aspiration with a selfish desire for position or maintaining power at all costs. Greatness is illustrated by how we move through loss and disappointments with acceptance, integrity, and honor. Greatness is displayed as we square our shoulders, wipe our tears, wash our face, pick up our bruised feelings, and know that we will persevere only then to rewrite our lives and stories as we remember to serve. Our greatness amid a pandemic is not an exercise of our personal freedoms, oh no, but greatness is how we live with humility in relation to our intentional participation in assuring the health and well-being of all. Our greatness is not apathy in the face of injustice, but to stand for justice, to stand for the right, to stand, for instance, with the KP nurses and the Hollywood behind-the-scenes workers, filmers, gophers, and the like, to stand with laborers and essential workers who simply want the equivalent of a living wage and a humane working condition. Our greatness before God, who ultimately displayed greatness in the life, death, and resurrection of Christ, is experienced when we live beyond the suffering and live into community, live globally, and live for the well-being of all. The counterintuitiveness of being great, it is to be a disciple of Christ, a humble disciple. It is to live and persevere as if we trust in God's faithfulness all the days of our lives. Amen.
I thank Dr. Boyd for that sermon, which applies to all of us in our Christian walk. There may be someone who is searching for a church home, someone who is seeking to renew a commitment to God, someone who is seeking reconciliation. We invite you to call us here at Holman at 323-703-5868, and someone will have a conversation with you. Here at Holman United Methodist Church, we commit ourselves individually and as a community to the way of Christ, to take up the cross, to seek abundant life for all humanity, to struggle for peace with justice and freedom globally and locally, to risk ourselves in faith, hope, and love, praying that God's kingdom may come on earth as it is in heaven. We invite you to join us in a citywide prayer service for Councilman Mark Ridley Thomas and the city of Los Angeles today at 5 o'clock at Southern Missionary Baptist Church, 4678 West Adams Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90016. We will now have the other announcements.
Our radio broadcast ministry is sponsored in memory of W. Paul Dunn. Paul departed on October 9th, 2010, and left a legacy of integrity, loyalty, generosity, kindness, and enduring love. Anita Dunn, Brian Dunn, Sherry Nikki Berry, Amara, and Michaela Berry. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Psalms 5, verse 1. Our flowers on the altar are in memory of W. Paul Dunn, husband, father, grandfather, brother, uncle, nephew, colleague, and friend who continues to inspire us with memories of love. Anita Dunn, Brian Dunn, and Sherry, Nikki Berry, Amara, and Michaela Berry. Also in memory of Esther Robinson, who would have celebrated her 93rd birthday on October 18th. Your light continues to shine from the heavens and brings joy to all who were blessed by your kindness, your service, and your love. Happy birthday. Missing you always, Valeria and Carrie Norwood and family. Prayer request. Please pray for Arthur Joseph, Irving Smith, and Curtis Cormier, Jr. Our general announcements are Sunday school lesson for children is available on Holman website. Families are encouraged to share the lesson with the children. Church calendar time, a reminder to all ministries to submit their calendar of meeting and activity dates for 2022. The submission deadline is October 24th. Please email to Holman at holmanumc.com. The Holman United Methodist Women monthly unit meeting for October has been rescheduled to the 5th Sunday, October 31st at 1 p.m. via Zoom. Our speaker will be Dr. Lisa Nicholas with a presentation on women's health issues during this time of pandemic. For more information on the Zoom link will be available in next Sunday's bulletin. Save the date and plan to join us. All are welcome. The Nonviolence Workshop, facilitated by Reverend James M. Lawson, Jr., will be held on Saturday, October 23rd at 9 a.m. via Zoom. The workshop is free, but registration is required. Sign up link is available on the church bulletin or on the Holman website. Our radio ministry broadcast continues to be a blessing to us and our community. It is not too early to reserve a radio broadcast sponsorship date for 2022. Please contact the church office at 323-703-5868 or visit the Holman website. We thank you for your continued support and partnership in ministry. Please visit the Holman website for additional information and announcements and opportunities to engage in ministry. God bless you.
Let us receive the benediction as we continue to ponder their counterintuitiveness of being great. Keep us from turning back. Our hand is on the plow, our faltering hand. But all in front of us is untilled land. The lonely deserts and its outer space. The handles of our plow with tears are wet and yet our God. Keep us from turning back. Go now in peace. Amen.
you have enjoyed our broadcast today and that it met a spiritual need in your life. If it was helpful, you can support this radio ministry by donating online at holmanchurch.com or by calling the church office at 323-703-5868. Again, that's 323-703-5868 or online at holmanchurch.com. That's HOLMAN, holmanchurch.com. Today's broadcast was sponsored in memory of W. Paul Dunn. Holman Church is located at 3320 West Adams Boulevard. That's Adams Boulevard and 4th Avenue in the historic West Adams district of Los Angeles. We wish God's blessing on you to have a wonderful week, and thank you for sharing this time with the Holman United Methodist Church on radio station KJLH 102.3 FM and everywhere on the internet via the Holman Church YouTube channel. Remember, you can contribute and find out more about us at holmanchurch.com. We hope to hear from you and see you soon.